Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and very good morning to everyone. So today we will continue our discussion on elasticity. Uh, in our last class, I have mentioned about uh, the first one, price elasticity of demand, and the second one is income elasticity of demand. So as for today, I will discuss the third types of the third types of elasticity demand, called cross elasticity of demand. And after that, we will discuss the supply price elasticity of supply. So these are the things that we will discuss today, which cross elasticity of demand and the price elasticity of demand. Now, these are the lesson plan for this slide. So we will talk about the definition, then we will try to see the application of cross elasticity of demand, and the last one will be the elasticity of supply, where we will try to see the definition, the degree, and also the measurement along with the determinant price elasticity of supply. Now, as we know that a cross-elasticity of demand measure the responsiveness of quantity demand for a particular good, for example, good Y, with respect to the change in the price of another goods X, or vice versa. So basically, the idea is it is exactly like price elasticity of demand, except here there are two goods, good X and good Y. So that's why we call it cross. So to improve your understanding, in chapter 2 you learn about complementary and substitute good. Therefore, you need to relate that discussion with this discussion, in the sense that we want to see if a price of good A increase, the quantity of good A will decrease. So what we want to see is what happened to the quantity demand for good B. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay, so this is called cross elasticity of demand. Okay, now the formula is the same, where on the top side you can see here is percentage change in quantity of good X. Here on the bottom side we have the percentage change in the price of good Y. Okay, but they are interchangeably, means that you can the quantity X here can be replaced with good Y, and the price Y here can be replaced with a price good X, as long as these are two different good. Now as you go through, you will notice that the last formula can be seen or can be read like this. uh, it is simply means quantity of good X new minus quantity of good X old, okay, divided by price of good Y new minus price of good Y old times price of good Y old divided by quantity good X old. Now here is the example of cross elasticity of demand. Okay, the question says that calculate cross elasticity of demand for good X when the price of good Y increases from 18 to 25. So basically you can see that the price increases from 18 to 25, meaning that RM25 is the new price. Okay, and it represents price of good Y, and 18 represent the old price. Okay, so here you can see that the quantity shouldn't be good Y, it should be good X, because it is called cross other goods. There are two goods, therefore this one would be the new quantity and this one would be the old quantity. Now as you calculate that, you will get the result. Okay, whatever result that you have, for example here the result is equivalent to 0.51. okay, you need to interpret them using this degree of responsiveness in cross elasticity of demand. Now if you calculate and the answer is positive, meaning that it is called the substitute. What does it mean by substitute? As the price of good Y increase, the quantity demand for good Y decrease. Alright, therefore the demand for good X increase. So relationship between the price of good Y and quantity demand or demand for good X is always positive. Therefore the value is positive. On the other hand, if you get the answer negative, therefore it is called complementary good. Why it is complementary good? Because an increase in the price of good Y will lead to fall in the quantity demand for good Y. Okay. However, the demand for good X will decrease. Why? Because here you need to consume good X along with good Y. Therefore, relationship between price of good Y and the demand for good X is always negative. And the last one is elasticity equal to 0. In this case, there is no relationship between good X and good Y. For example, an increase in the price of, let's say, the price of durian. What happened to the demand of petrol? Of course, the answer is 0. Okay. Now back to your answer just now. So you have 0.51, meaning that it is actually positive and it is called substitute. Now, the next part that I want to discuss is price elasticity of supply. Here we will talk about the degree of responsiveness of the quantity supplied for a particular good with respect to change in the price. So basically it is exactly the same like price elasticity of demand, except here we are talking about the supply. Therefore here the percentage change in quantity should be supplied rather than demand. Here the percentage change in the this is represented by percentage change in the price. As you will have the final answer here, it is written as Q1 minus Q0 over P1 minus P0 times P0 over Q0. The Q1 minus Q0 represent the change in the quantity, while the P1 minus P0 represent the change in a price. And Q1 represent new, Q0 represent all quantity, P1 represent new price, P0 represent all price. Now, if I give you example, you can easily calculate the answer. Okay, for example here, when the price of car increase, when the price of car is Rm 20,000 each, the supply is 1,000 unit per month. When the price increases to Rm 30,000 each, the supply increase to 1,200 unit per month. So basically the answer is always positive. Alright, why? Because an increase in the price lead to the increase in the quantity. That follows the law of supply. Now according to this answer, it says that the answer should be 0.4, and 0.4 is bigger than 1. Therefore you need to interpret the 0.4 according to the degree of responsiveness in price elasticity of supply. So in this example, elastic is actually can be found when the answer that you calculate just now is bigger than 1. Okay, therefore it is called elastic. Now if the answer is less than 1 but bigger than 0, which is positive but less than 1, it is called inelastic. And if your answer is equivalent to 1, it is called unitary elastic. And if your answer is equivalent to infinity, it is called perfectly elastic. And if your answer is equal to 0, it is called perfectly inelastic. Now somehow we need to interpret the meaning of elastic and inelastic, so on and so forth. Now the meaning of elastic is very simple. Now before we go for the meaning of elastic, I think it is best for us to talk about inelastic, because your answer just now is 0.4. Now, do you notice that 0.4 actually belongs to this category where the number is actually more than 0 but less than 1. What does it mean by the inelastic? Inelastic means that the percentage change in the quantity is smaller than the percentage change in the price. Or you can read them in different way. You say the percentage change in the price is bigger than the percentage change in quantity. Straightforward, it means what? It means an increase in the price will lead to the smaller percentage change in quantity. Any increase in the price will lead to smaller percentage change in quantity, meaning that the quantity supply is not responsive. It is inelastic, does not want to change. In this case, you will notice that here an increase in the price, for example 1%, the quantity increase that follow the law of supply, but it increased only 0.4. So this is back to your answer just now. So if you have the graph is slightly steeper. Now, in contrast, elastic means your answer is actually bigger than 1. Okay, let's say 2. So how do you read 2? 2 means that an increase 1% in price will lead to 2% increase in quantity supply. Therefore, you can say that percentage change in quantity supply is bigger than percentage change in the price. Here you will notice that the change here, small change in the price, will lead to bigger change in the quantity supply, meaning the quantity supply is a bit responsive or a bit elastic. Therefore, in the graph here, the curve is slightly flat. Okay, and as for the unitary, it is equivalent to 1. Your answer is equivalent to 1, meaning that any percentage change in price will always equal to percentage change in price. For example, if price increase 1%, quantity also increase by 1%, must increase but by 1%. If the price increase 20%, the quantity supply also increase by 20%. Now, as for the perfectly elastic, the answer is equivalent to infinity. Now, how do you get the answer equivalent to infinity? Back to your first formula just now, you said percentage change in quantity supply divided by percentage change in the price. You will see that here the price is equivalent to, the percentage change in the price is equivalent to 0 or almost 0. Therefore, if you use that formula, any number divided by 0 will always equal to infinity. The graph here represents that the curve is slightly flat or horizontal. In this case, any small percentage change in the price will lead to infinity change in quantity supply. So that's why the quantity increase, okay, up to infinity, or decrease if the price decrease by infinity, but the price remain the same. And for the last one here, it says that perfectly inelastic, okay, the elasticity equivalent to 0. How do you get this one? Equal to 0, back to your formula just now, percentage change in quantity over percentage change in the price. You will notice that the quantity here is equivalent to, the percentage change in quantity here equivalent to 0 or almost 0. So back to the formula, 0 divided by any number will always produce 0. Here, it means what? When the price change with infinity or any percentage, the quantity remain the same. The quantity will not increase, neither nor decrease. That's why here the quantity is not equal to 0, except the change here is equal. The percentage change here is equal to 0, meaning that it remains there. Okay. So the last part is called the factor influencing price elasticity of supply, or also non-determinant price elasticity of supply. So in this case, I want you to differentiate between things that you learn in chapter 2, where you learn about determinant of supply. In this case, we don't talk about determinant of supply. Instead, we talk about what makes the good, the supply, is elastic or inelastic. Now, number one, it has to do with time frames. So the time frames is divided into two, short run or long run. As a supplier, in short run, the supply will be inelastic. Why? Because you don't have much time to increase the supply if there is change in the price. What does it mean by that? As the price increases, of course you want to increase the quantity. But here the quantity increase with a small percentage because you don't have time to adjust your production. But in the long run, when you see the price increase, you can easily increase the quantity, meaning that it is elastic. Why? Because you have more time to adjust your supply. The nature of good, okay, some good takes too long to produce, okay, and in this case the supply is bit inelastic, okay. For example, supply of agricultural products such as paddy, right, it is bit inelastic. Why? When you see the price increase, you cannot easily adjust the quantity of paddy to be produced. Why? Paddy takes time to produce. Therefore, quantity increase, but increase with a smaller percentage, and it is known as inelastic. Okay, cost and feasibility of storage. In this case, we are talking about the cost and the storage. Let's talk about the cost. Okay, every single product requires costs such as labor, wage, okay, interest rate, capital, so on and so forth. Now, if this production costs you so much, okay, therefore this will lead to inelastic supply. But if the good only costs you a small cost, therefore the supply will be elastic. What does it mean by that? It means if let's say cars, okay, car, Ferrari, so on and so forth, they cost you very much. All right. Now, if the price of Ferrari increase, okay, dramatically, of course you want to supply more. But here you cannot supply more because the component costs you very much. In this case, the cost of producing Ferrari, the cost is high, therefore the supply tend to be inelastic. And the next thing is called perishables and non-perishable. Perishable means good that are not long lasting. They are not withstand with let's say climate, so on and so forth. So they are not long lasting. As for the non-perishable, they are durable good, okay, such as cars, okay, they are durable. They can be used for 20 years, okay. But the perishable goods such as agricultural product, let's say vegetables, all right, the supply would be inelastic. What does it mean by that? When the price of let's say the price of vegetable increase, of course you will increase your supply, okay. However, the increase in quantity supply or the supply will be slightly smaller because you know that you cannot supply more, given that this good cannot last for, let's say, three days or 1 week, okay, because it requires you to hold them, put them in storage, and so forth. That's why this good tend to be inelastic. Now, mobility and availability of resources. We talking about resources such as land, labor, capital. Okay. Now, if you can easily switch between this capital and labor. Let's say capital and labor. Now, the supply will be elastic. Okay. But if you cannot switch between these two labors, okay, the demand, I mean the supply will be inelastic. What does it mean by that? Let's say during COVID-19, okay, people cannot work around, okay, so if we can switch labor with capital machine, when we see the price of the certain good increase, we can easily produce the good using capital, because in this case capital allow you to substitute the labor just now that cannot work around. So in this case the supply tend to be elastic. However, if you don't have capital, you only rely on labor, in the event of, let's say, COVID-19, when you see the price increase, of course you want to increase the supply, but the quantity supply increase with smaller percentage because the labor cannot be present in the factory or do the production. Okay, that's it everyone. Thank you and see you in our next meeting.